So Ichigo Kurosaki's son, Kazui Kurosaki. Since the end of the Bleach manga with chapter 686, we all knew there was something slightly off about this child, or at the very least he was extraordinarily gifted with some type of powers, because do not forget that at the end of the Bleach manga, the remnants of Yhwach, Yhwach, the leader of the Quincy army that led an invasion that ultimately spanned for many chapters, hundreds of chapters, that was called the Thousand-Year Blood War. We know that there was everybody and anybody that tried to take him down, which resulted in the death of the captain commander Yamamoto. Ichigo struggled against him. Heck, even Aizen took an L at the hands of this guy. But ultimately, when his remnants of his power was starting to revive 10 years later after the Thousand-Year Blood War, unbeknownst to everybody, Kazui Kurosaki was the one that seemingly struck him down and destroyed any remnants of his power that was returning, which is no small feat by any means, especially for a young child that is probably at the max 10 years old at the time of that event. And then you fast forward 2 years later to the Bleach one-shot that was recently released, No Breaths from Hell, that leads into the Howls from the Jaws of Hell arc. Yeah, Kazui Kurosaki, very interesting character, very ominous at the same time, and it makes you question what is the future for this character, what is he up to, what is he going to be doing, and is he possibly even being influenced or even possibly controlled by outside forces? A lot to divulge into. Let's talk a little bit of Bleach and Ichigo's son, Kazui Kurosaki, this ominous, very strange, and peculiar child.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
So as I said, Bleach chapter 686 is where we got the first glimpse of Kazui Kurosaki, Ichigo and Orehime's child. And off the bat, I want to say that there's a possibility, because remember, we're only getting this context from the manga. There's a possibility Kazui Kurosaki might not necessarily be as ominous as it's coming off. It could simply be that, don't forget how Orihime was, because that is his mom, and at the end of the day, some characters, you know, the main protagonists, spin-off characters, could be influenced by the personality of their father or their mother. And Orihime was a little bit, you could argue, dim-witted at the very beginning of Bleach, especially where she came across as like, yeah, she, you know, what's in there, because she was a little bit naive to a lot of different things, and she came across as such. And that could very well be the case with Kazui Kurosaki. It could be as simple as he is extraordinarily gifted, but ultimately he's very naive and childlike in the mind, even for his age, and that's why he comes across as, you could even argue, a little bit scary, especially from what we saw in the Bleach one-shot with him opening the gates of hell. But we'll get to that in a little bit, because in the one shot alone, he is leading souls straight to hell. Like, you got to think about that for a second. And how long has he been doing that? Because you see that he sneaks out of his room, he goes with Kon, he leads the spirit that wanted to quote-unquote play with him, and he's like, yo, I got a great place to go. He claps his hands 3 times at a shrine, and boom, opens the jaws of hell to lead this soul there. How long has this kid been doing this? Because this isn't a first-time thing. Who taught this kid how to do this as well? A lot of questions immediately gotta arise from that. Now, obviously, somebody that's a good person ain't going to do that. Ichika, you know, his friend Renji and Rukia's daughter, isn't going to teach him that as well, because first of all, she's barely there. We hear that, you know, she only comes there on special occasions, and she has to have special permissions to visit the world of the living. So who is it that's going to teach him how to clap his hands 3 times and open the portal to hell? That's something that's going to immediately make you wonder, like, how the hell would he learn something like that? And that's going to immediately lead to, there's a possibility that there's outside influences, outside forces that ultimately taught him this. Now, you're probably going to have to exclude Yhwach immediately, because again, one of the big things is that he destroyed the remnants of Yhwach all the way back in chapter 686, which I want to say takes place 2 years prior to this Bleach one-shot. There's the possibility that before that power even started to arise, that maybe Bach was already infiltrating and kind of influencing Ichigo's son's mind. So there's that possibility, but still, nevertheless, you could probably safely say that it wasn't Yhwach, because again, he wasn't around. It was just remnants of his power that were beginning to surface, and Ichigo's son immediately wiped them out. I guess you could throw in the argument and get a little darker that after he was trying to influence him, Ichigo's son learned what he was teaching him and ultimately wiped him out anyways, which would be freaking sick. The other possibility, which is Kubo's favorite character in Bleach that he ultimately uses, and I ain't gonna lie, he's one of my favorites, it could be that Aizen is manipulating this kid and ultimately taught him that to begin with, because again, who is going to teach him this whole technique of going to hell, opening the portal. And also, you gotta say that this is kind of dark. This kid is kind of a little weird. He's a little strange. He's guiding souls straight to hell. He's not even guiding them to like, yo, I'm gonna send you to the way of Soul Society because I feel bad. He's been taking them to hell, which is kind of ironic because ultimately a lot of these powerful characters have been sending them to hell anyways every time they kill a strong opponent based on the info we got in the Bleach one-shot. And since we're talking about Aizen, let's not forget the big de facto regarding Aizen's connection with Ichigo. The fact that Aizen planned everything. That was one of the biggest things that was a meme at the time in the Bleach community, but ultimately it's real. He planned everything down to Ichigo's birth. Who's to say that Aizen didn't plan down to Kazui Kurosaki's birth as well? If he's been doing, you know, that much due diligence and that much planning for that many years to plan Ishin and his wife getting it on and creating Ichigo, who's to say that he wasn't involved in that as well when it comes to Ichigo and Orihime? If maybe in between the 1,000 Year Blood War this was a setup, or he knew everything was going to happen to begin with, because again, he's been a mastermind. So having Aizen a part of the equation is definitely a strong possibility, because even it was mentioned, which it was very unclear at the time of the one shot, that Aizen's Reiatsu disappeared, and that was one of the things that created this void that ultimately sent them to hell. Now that could have been just referring to the fact that he's been strapped down in that chair. Don't forget Chair-sama. He was strapped down to the chair, so that could have ultimately been masking his power and suppressing it, which led to Aizen's Reiatsu disappearing. Or it could very well be that he planned all of this and ultimately was able to escape using Kazui Kurosaki. That would be so crazy. Like, it's a possibility that if he could open the gates to hell, who's to say he wasn't able to open up the gates to where Aizen was strapped down and free him? I mean, at the end of the day, even at the end of Bleach 686, Aizen's powers were only continuing to grow. There's a strong possibility that he was able to infiltrate his influence to be able to say to this kid Kazui, hey, you know, I'm your father's friend, I want to play with you, something, come free me, motherfucker. But then that would also lead to, okay, if Aizen is controlling him, why would he only have him delivering spirits to hell? Essentially, that could be that he was trying to overflow, because don't forget, in the Bleach one shot, when Jalaparo Gran shows up, one of the big things he says is that y'all been sending too many people to hell. Y'all basically flooded it and made an explosion that allowed what's happening right now, because y'all was sending all these people. It basically destroyed the foundation, so to speak. It could very well be that whoever taught him this whole thing of sending them to hell could have been involved in this whole plot. So maybe it might not be Aizen, maybe it could be somebody else, because don't forget, there's a lot of people that actually died, in particular villains in Bleach, that could be a part of all this. But it would make sense at the same time, if this whole hell revival, opening the portals to hell thing is a thing, then it could possibly be whoever was in charge of making this whole thing happen was using Kazui Kurosaki to ultimately rip open the gates of hell and start whatever's about to begin with this whole hell arc. And let's not forget the insane genetics behind Kazui Kurosaki, because he is his father's son, so that would ultimately leave that he is human. He is part Soul Reaper, Spirit Reaper. He is part Quincy. He's a damn full brain. This dude is everything. Part hollow. Like, this kid has it all. So that's also going to contribute to the fact that, holy shit, this kid is overpowered, and the abilities and capabilities, imagine just having that all amassed and at the same time being able to understand it from a young age, assuming maybe he's a potential prodigy, or just again having somebody in his ear teaching him about how to use these things. Ichigo didn't get to use his Soul Reaper powers until he was already, 15 when Bleach began and shit like that. What if this kid that is, you know, young and already can access and tap into these powers has been training these abilities all along? And it also makes you wonder, how much do Ichigo and Orihime and anybody in general know about Kazui's powers? We know that he's had some play dates with Ichika, Renji, and Rukia's daughter, but to what extent do they know the powers that he's doing? I'm sure they don't know that he's basically guiding souls straight to hell. And then the playful nature that really makes it creepy of Kazui Kurosaki when it comes to this whole hell situation, because in the one shot, as he guides this lost soul and he's like, hey, we're gonna have fun, and he brings this soul straight to hell after opening the portal, he says, it's okay, everyone's here, as if this is like a fun thing, and you know, some of the worst is going to be in hell, not including of course that there are some good people at the end of the day. Captain Commander, Unohana, a lot of decent people are going to be there as well, but ultimately, yeah, he's guiding souls straight to hell and having a good time doing it seemingly, and this is definitely not the first time. So if this is not the first time, what has he been doing going to hell all these other potential times, maybe throughout the years? And also, he's going to play a pivotal factor in whatever's about to go down, because the event events of that one shot take place around 3 hours after whatever went down, with them going to hell with Ichigo and Xylapro and all that stuff. So he is going to play a pivotal factor. He could potentially, with this overpowered nature that we've seen displayed in chapter 686 of wiping out Yhwach's remnants, he could very well show up and just put a cease to everything and be this overpowered kid that, you know, could surprise everyone. Everyone might look around and be like, holy shit, since when? What? Ichigo's son can do what? Which would also lead to some interesting things as well. We know Soul Society don't play when they feel like there's a threat or a potential threat, and Ichigo's son could very well be that. Imagine this all leads into some sort of thing where Ichigo has to protect his son from Soul Society because they're just not playing right now. Although I don't know how far that would go, because back in the day, the reason something like that would go down was because of the Captain Commander Yamamoto. Yamamoto didn't play. I don't know if Kyoraku would go that far as to like, hey, let's kill Ichigo's son, he's dangerous. And it even adds more to just the ominous mystery of this kid at the end of that one shot where he's chasing the hell butterfly and has that, I don't know if you would argue again, innocent and more Orihime-esque type of smile, or potentially just weird and ominous. It definitely leaves a lot of mystery and a lot of story to be told regarding this kid that you don't quite know where to categorize him as a character. Because with these incredible powers, he also could be a catalyst to freeing people from hell. He could be the one to actually send people like Yamamoto, Unohana, and everybody else that shouldn't be in hell back to, you know, get reincarnated or go to the Soul Society or whatever. So he could possibly be that. And also, if he's opening portals by, you know, just command, he could very well put a stop to this whole hell thing to begin with. So he could turn into being just like an innocent kid that kind of was tricked into all this, and ultimately is the one that seals everything up in the end. And also, is he going to be, let's just say if he's a part of the whole plot that they had to begin with of, you know, opening up hell and doing all this stuff, if he's a part of that, he could again get charged by the Soul Society. The Soul Society has shown to be on some fuck shit in the past. And then it makes you think, again, the length of what's about to go down. How far is this going to go? Because at the end of the day, if this is, you know, opening hell, and a lot of people that we've seen in the past, villains especially, are sent to hell, and they could possibly even cross over at will if the gates are going to stay open or whatever, there's a lot of people that we've faced that are very, very nasty foes that could pose a threat. Again, for example, Yhwach, the strongest opponent that we ever had, that a part of his whole reasoning that he wanted to get rid of the concept of death to begin with is probably due to him having an understanding of what happens about, you know, everybody being sent essentially to hell and how it continues on and on. So there's a possibility that they're going to have to face Yhwach again, which I don't know how that would even work, because he is so freaking strong, especially towards the end of Bleach, that yeah, we could go hundreds of chapters fighting Yhwach in hell alone. Then something that I thought would be really interesting, I'm not sure if he was strong enough to be able to be sent down there automatically, but then again, because he was a hollow, I can't remember if he was actually sent back to like the Soul Society to be a reincarnated or whatever, but Grand Fisher, the, you know, person responsible for the death, well, partially I guess, because, you know, it was revealed later about Yhwach, but ultimately having a hand in the death of Ichigo's mother, yeah, that would be an interesting encounter as well. Ichigo seeing him once more, or technically I don't think he was involved, it was more so Ishin that put him down. But Ichigo being involved and having an encounter with Grand Fisher in hell would be interesting. Kazui seeing the person that was partially responsible for killing his grandmother would be interesting. Who knows, maybe Grand Fisher somehow, some way was the one that led Kazui and used his influence to bring Kazui to do this whole hell thing. Like, no, Grand Fisher wasn't that smart. I mean, he kind of got a little smart towards the end, but no, but either way, seeing Grand Fisher again would be interesting and a nice tie-in with this whole family dynamic. Yami from the Espada, you know, the Zero Espada, I mean, he was technically strong. He was kind of a brute and a meathead, so like it would be a cool thing to see, but it would mostly be strictly for fan service, because like, yeah, Yami, and they way since surpassed what Yami was to begin with. I mean, he got bodied by captains way before the 1,000-Year Blood War, so yeah, Yami would be a cool fan service thing to see, I guess. Ulquiorra, he probably wouldn't be evil per se, but between all the Bleach Brave Soul stuff where we've seen those other transformations and things, like, it would be really dope and awesome to see Ulquiorra again, and I would absolutely love that. And again, I could see him more being, at this point, not necessarily a good guy, but leaning towards the protagonist side, because Ulquiorra, he was just going off commands and following what he felt was the proper way, thanks to Aizen's brainwashing. So I don't know if Ulquiorra would necessarily be on the bad side. Again, that would be an interesting interesting encounter. Ichigo seeing Ulquiorra one more time, or even again his son there. Like, there's just some really interesting possibilities with Ulquiorra returning. Baragon, I mean, he was like the grandfather of Hell, so Baragon, I definitely think we are going to see Baragon. I don't know to what capacity and what type of, you know, influence and strength he's going to be wielding around, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Baragon again, and it would make sense. Noritora as well, I could see him being like somewhat fodder, not necessarily like completely like absolutely a scrub, but I could see like maybe even Ichika, depending on how strong she is. Let's just say Ichika and Ikkaku going up against him. That would be an interesting bout. And Arenero, which that would also be an interesting one for Ichika because of, you know, Kai and Shiba, the whole thing that he was doing, and Rukia. Like, if Rukia ran into Arenero again, that would kind of be dope. And yeah, those are for the most part the people that I could imagine returning in this whole Hell thing that, you know, Kazui Kurosaki is potentially even a catalyst to begin with, maybe working in unison and whoever was teaching about this. Or it also could be just the last theory to throw in that maybe Aizen was manipulating him to do all this because Aizen was trying to once again save the Soul Society, but masking it in his Aizen Mysterioso way. But this kid, Ichigo Kurosaki's son, Kazui Kurosaki, what do you make of him? Is he potentially evil? Is he potentially a main character's child that is secretly a bad guy? I mean, Kon would have picked up on it by now, right? Like, then again, Kon was surprised by him opening the gates of Hell, but do you think he's a bad kid, evil kid? Do you think he's being guided by some outside force that taught him how to go to Hell to begin with and open the gates of Hell? Is it Aizen? Is it Yhwach? Maybe the remnants of his power? There was more to it in between these 2 years, or even before that power ultimately began. Could it have been Ichika, Renji's daughter, that maybe taught him this to begin with? Could it be some other force that we don't know about? And is he just like more so dim-witted, like, you know, kind of an airhead the way Orihime was early on in Bleach? Or is it just that he's very young and misguided, and adding that concoction alongside the powers to open up the gates of Hell is a very, very scary combination? And how do you see all this playing out moving forward into Bleach's Howls from the Jaw of Hell arc that is getting ready to begin? Again, I don't know if it's going to be another one-shot or two, or if they're gonna make enough one-shots to make like a film or something. That would be interesting. After the Bleach anime revival, then you come back with boom, and we got a film to tie it all up that's going to take place after. Actually, that's genius. It'll kind of be like how they did Boruto Naruto the movie at the end. Maybe this is going to be the Boruto Naruto the movie of Bleach, with this being animated or something. I'd be all for it. And your bro thoughts and expectations for Ichigo's son, Kazui Kurosaki. Evil or misguided, and yeah, very, very overpowered. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links of course in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Have an awesome day. Peace in. And Kazui Kurosaki, very, very interesting character, and could definitely be a major change to the whole status quo of a shonen protagonist's offspring and a spin-off of sorts. We gotta wait and see though. Have an awesome one.